Stanley Alwiel.
And where were you born?
New York City, November 7th, 1923.
Um, what were you doing before you? How many siblings do you have?
I had four. When you say siblings,
Brothers and sisters.
I had two brothers and one sister.
And what were you doing before you entered the military?
I my I just left a job as a clerk for a clothing company, and I was employed by the government in Brooklyn in the Navy yard, and I learned how to do tack welding.
Oh, okay.
And I was called by my draft board. Uh, that was in 1943, and then I was inducted into the Army March 13th, 1943. Um, and went to Whitehall Street for a physical.
And that's in Brooklyn?
In New York City.
Okay.
And then I was sent to Fort Screvens in Georgia.
Really?
I think it, and where I had basic training.
What was that like?
The usual roll call in the morning, uh, making your bed and inspecting your rifle, and we were inspected once a week, and if the unit, the group of men that I was living with, if we did not pass inspection, we were called gigged, and we did not have a pass to go to one of the cities in Georgia, and the basic training took approximately 3 months, and we boarded a train. And we went cross country to Pittsburgh, but not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This was Pittsburgh on the outskirts of San Francisco, and that was a port of embarkation. And we boarded a ship July 3rd, and it was like steerage, as you would see in the movie Titanic, where we were uh, thousands of troops boarding, and we were put in deck E or F, where there were 1,000 men. And I remember the first day I saw the shower. So I went into the shower room and I was surprised no one was there, and I turned on the water, but it was salt water.
Ooh.
So you could not bathe. They did not have soap. They had soap at the end of the water, that the end of the war, where you can wash you yourself with this soap and salt water. So we were given two canteens full of water, and we slept in hammocks at least 6 feet, uh, 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 six rather, 6 hammocks to an area where 6 men, one, two, three, up to 6, would sleep. And we were on this ship that left July 3rd, 1943, and we arrived in Brisbane, Australia, July 23rd. And I remember we would always be assigned by rank, and I was a private at T5. That's equivalent to a corporal, and I remember sleeping in the tent on a bed of straw, and during the night I felt, some warm things running across my legs, and I was sleeping with rats. And we stayed there approximately 1 month, and then we went to New Guinea. I believe the area was called Papua, if I'm pronouncing the word.
Papua New Guinea, yeah.
And it was actually Milne Bay. And we were becoming organized into work groups, because our company was formed.
What was the name of your company?
It 1052nd Engineer Port Construction. It was similar to the Navy Seabees. They were two groups like this. One group went to the Pacific, and the other group went to Europe. And we went to Pacific, and then we moved from Milne Bay to Lae, New Guinea, where, because of the lack of roads, we built wooden jetties, or we built docks made of wood, so the ships could tie up and unload the necessary supplies for the troops that were doing the fighting. And we stayed in New Guinea for approximately one year. From Milne Bay, we went to Ley, and then we went to Finch Haven, and then we went to Dutch New Guinea, Hollandia.
Were those different islands in the New Guinea
It
chain,
was
or
it
the same
was
island?
one island, but it took different names. We were paid in Milne Bay, Ley, and Finch Haven in the Australian currency, a pound. And in Hollandia, that was Dutch New Guinea, and we were paid in guilders. And we were there building these jetties and wooden docks so the supplies could be brought ashore because there weren't any roads. And from Dutch New Guinea, we boarded a ship, and we were part of a convoy of 500 ships, and we were going to make an invasion. We someplace in the Philippines. We did not know exactly where until we got there. And
do you remember the name of the ship you were on?
No, but the only thing that I remember again, we were always put down on these lower decks, and I never saw the deck of any of the ships that I traveled on. And these ships, were made of steel, and that would heat up, and it would be unbearable. And MacArthur, General MacArthur, was in charge of the military operation in that area, and he had a good plan. Instead of hedge hopping these small islands like Iwo Jima and the others, he went into the center and he made those small islands obsolete, and we made the invasion on October 20th, 1944, and the name of the city was Tacloban, and that's where we set up our base of operation.
And what country was that in, the Philippines?
Tacloban.
That was the name of the city?
Yeah, that was the name of the city.
What country?
In the Philippines.
Okay. Just want to make
See, and by going into the center, he made these other small, then the Marines didn't have to go from island to island. He made them obsolete. And we made our camp on Dewey Boulevard, and we again did whatever construction was necessary in that area, and in fact we saw the famous camp where there was a death march by the Japanese when they controlled the Philippines, when 10,000 uh, uh, military men died in the march.
Bataan?
But when we were there, the camp was closed and it was obsolete. And from there, we went to another island at the end of Tacloban called Batangas. And there, through attrition, I became the supply sergeant, and I received a upgrade from basic private to supply NCO. And there I had all the time I was in New Guinea, we had these work crews, and when we would have a break for lunch, we all had to take a tablet of quinine wasn't Attabrin. Quinine wasn't available, so we took Attabrin. And when we would go to sleep at night while we were in New Guinea, we slept on wooden cots, and we would make T-bars of wood, and then with another piece of wood holding up mosquito netting. And we used to sleep with the netting tucked in at night, and in many of these places the rats would run up and down and on top of the wood and down. And when we got to Batangas, that we stopped with taking the Attabrin, I don't remember. And I remember I was in the supply, and it could have been 100 degrees, and my teeth, my mouth began to chatter. I couldn't control myself, and the Filipinos said, malaria, malaria. And that was my first attack of malaria. And malaria is given by the female mosquito known as Anopheles or something like that. Her bite would inflict the malaria fluid into your body. And I went to the hospital, and when I was well, I came back and I continued my work. And the war was winding down, and when we were in Tacloban, I forgot to tell you before, that was we were told to pitch camp, and we slept in pyramidal tents, and you have to elevate them, and they were waterproof, but they were very hot, and the war was turning in Tacloban, and the Bettys, they were Japanese dive bombers. They would come out suddenly the 90s would go off. They were picked up, and these Betty's dive bombers would drop anti personnel bombs that would explode just above uh, the ground. And they were doing this to harass us. And for 1 month, when we were in, I know I'm going backwards,
That's
in Tacloban, they would come over at least 3 times during the night, like 11 o'clock, then 2 o'clock, then 3 o'clock. And then our encampment was on the bay, and uh, the where the water was, the beach was like 4 feet down, and we had our tents, on this level. And one night, this was the third time that they dropped these anti-personnel bombs. So I was tired. This is the third time I was running for my foxhole, but I still remember the bombs exploded on the top. So as I was running for the foxhole, I saw an orange splash, and then I heard the shrapnel go over my head and ping, and it would hit my tent. Another 6 inches, and we would have had a lot of casualties. I think we had two. One man was the sergeant. He was killed. And then when we moved out of Tacloban and went to Batangas, then on August the 6th, 1944, they dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Then August 9th, they dropped the second bomb on Nagasaki. And before they dropped the first bomb, we had started to retake basic training, and we were going to invade Japan under the leadership of General Eichenberger of the 8th Army, where we were going to land, I don't know, because Japan is a country of 5 islands, and and we were going to go to, after we completed our basic training, we were supposed to go to Okinawa, and from Okinawa we were going to invade Japan. But when they dropped the bombs in August, because I think the first week in September the war ended, so we went to a city called Sasebo, and we got on. They had bullet trains, and I remember riding through the cities, and we passed one city, Kobe, I think was the name, which was equivalent to our Pittsburgh, and the B-29s demolished, that city completely, and then the train passed Nagasaki, and I saw Nagasaki, and I couldn't believe what one bomb did. It was completely leveled, but none of us knew anything about radiation, and it's a good thing the train didn't stop. So we continued to a city called Fukuoka, and I was the supply sergeant then, and I ordered 250 uniforms, and that's why they have this notation on here. And then we went to an area where Fukuoka was a port of embarkation. And the night they called my name to go home with my group, which was approximately 200 men and officers, I had an attack of malaria. So they took me from there to Nagoya, and I never went back to the United States with my original group. And being a Jew was difficult because maybe there were 6 to 10 of us in a group of men who were construction men. And, construction men are not like office personnel, their language, and we were never fully accepted, because I remember one instance where I would be assigned to, before I became a supply NCO, with a work group, and these the work groups of 6 men. So 5 of these men came from Tarpon Springs, Florida, the sponge divers, and they said, "Stanley, you're a Jew?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "You're the first Jew we ever met." And then, after going through everything, and I got this, the way I handled, the NCO supply, I had this commendation, and they called me a white Jew. I was called a white Jew, and there was their interpretation. But there was still a feeling where the Jew wasn't fully accepted because they believed we killed, Jesus Christ. We had him crucified, where we actually did not, but we took the blame, and in fact, Jesus Christ lived with a group of people called the Essenes, who were actually Jews, and when he had his last meal, that was the Passover, the supper.
Was your unit integrated? I mean, were there people of color, African Americans in your unit, or was this
No. The African American was separated from the Caucasian population. President Truman integrated the African American into the regular army, and the African Americans mostly were used in the Europe theater of operation to drive trucks.
Oh.
They never let them be in combat, and Truman was the one that integrated them. In fact, they were called the Red Ball Express, and they were very good, and they used to service Patton's army when he wanted to beat Montgomery, into Berlin, and Montgomery was the same as uh, 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 Patton, who also wanted the glory because Montgomery defeated Rommel in North Africa, not because, in my opinion, that he was a better military man. We were lucky that we had some sabotage in the United States, but we were never bombed, so our production was never disrupted. And Rommel in North Africa was running out of gasoline.
Well, speaking of supplies, what was it like when you were living there in the South Pacific? Were you able to get all the necessities and things?
Yes, yes, but it was all dehydrated food. See, and then the Australians, we made an lease agreement. They couldn't ship our supplies to Australia at 7,000 miles. Mm-hmm. So, in exchange, we made the agreement we would use their they made K rations, and we did. But our rations were better than theirs. And then we did not have fresh food because we did not have any refrigeration in New Guinea or even in the Philippines. So for 30 months we ate dehydrated food. And when I was discharged, I was in the Army 33 months. When I came back to the United States, I had a severe case of gastritis because I was eating that type of food. Number one, it wasn't as good as our food. And the other oddity, every once in a while, a group of Australian soldiers would share our facilities. And when they would go to sleep, they were my age, 19 or 20. A good percentage of them had false teeth.
Really?
They must have been some deficiency in their diet. And then this was in 1943 when I was there. Every Saturday, I forget the name, they used to collect the outhouses. They didn't have indoor plumbing in Brisbane anyway. And they were, behind. But I was astounded when they took their false teeth out. There must have been some deficiency in their diet, and yet as far as their milk products were, I never knew, but it was accepted, that even women would have that. Wow. And then, after my attack of malaria, I was put on a train, and I came back to Fort Dix, and I was discharged.
That's Fort Dix, New Jersey, right?
Yeah, on the 14th of January, 1946.
So what was it like after you came back, after being in the Army?
I was confused, like the military people who are coming back. I didn't know what I wanted, and then because of the diet that I was on for 30 months, I had this gastritis. But I could have gone to college, I think, but I made a mistake. and because I grew up during the Depression, so I never took algebra, and my IQ was only around 100, and where my two brothers were like 120, and one became a warrant officer, a bombardier navigator, another one went into the Navy, and he had an IQ of 120, and I didn't, so they put me, and then again, I was lucky that I didn't go into a combat unit, even though I was exposed for 30 days, at least 100 of these raids, and that one I'll never forget. You know, I still can see the flak, going over my head, and even one other instance where I froze. I was on a work barge going to work, and a Betty came out of the sky, and you hear the roar, and it looked like it was going to hit our work barge, and there were about 6 of us on this work barge, and I didn't know what to do. Should I jump in the water or stand still? And luckily, the dive bomber missed everything, and no one was hurt.
That's great.
But the living conditions were if I remember when I got to the United States, in January 1940, January 1st or 2nd, I went to Fort Lewis, and they had the prisoners of war, the Germans. They were serving food. They were eating better than I was. And from there, I went to Fort Dix, and then I was discharged. Where's the date? January 14th, 1946. And they had what they called the 5220 Club, that every week I would go and they would give me $20. But I was mixed up. I should have gone to college, but I had a serious relationship with my wife. We met in school, high school, in January in 1940 or 41, and when I was growing up during the Depression, I never thought of college because I knew my family would, need the money. I remember when I had my first job, I worked 5.5 days a week for a clothing firm called Wallach's. They paid me $14 a week, and they didn't have any deductions then. I used to give my mother $10, and I would keep $4. And in those years, I forget the name of the chain, but you can buy a Frankfurter for 5 cents, a plate of fries for 5 cents, and a soda for 5 cents. That's what the prices were. And all subways, trolley cars, elevated trains, all were 5 cents. To make a telephone call, 5 cents. That was the price. So if you had $4, you had a lot of money.
It lasted a long time, yeah. Okay, this is great. Is there anything else you'd like to add? General impressions, thoughts? I think that we've gotten.
It made me appreciate the things that we take every day that is available here, and particularly when you're on the island in New Guinea and we were on the East Coast. On the West Coast, they had cannibals, headhunters. In fact, Nelson Rockefeller had a son, David. He went on an expedition, New Guinea, after the war. It could have been in the 1950s. Then he was lost. They never found him. And he was a millionaire, his son. Yeah. His son went to, evidently, I don't know if it's the West Coast is inhabited today, but they were headhunters in that time. So it made me appreciate what we take for granted